Hello everyone, I hope that you're all getting along well with the module. I received all sorts of questions about the assignment 1 and also seen some of you. And so what we've decided to do was to actually talk about the assignment 1 a little bit in our next tutorial, which is week 5, is next week. But I also thought that it would probably be a good idea if I would kind of sit down and create something, a short video for you, just to take on board some of your questions, but also go through the actual assignment on StudyNet, where you will be able to see more about the things that we asked you to do and what is that we actually want you to do in the first assignment. In the meanwhile, if some of the questions that you made come to my mind, I'm going to cover them. If not, then you can always ask me, but I'm going to try and go through that just to make sure that you're all up to speed with it. If you want, we can talk about some of the things that I will cover in this video in our next tutorials, but of course just to set the ground on what we want you to cover for the first assignment. Now, first things first, of course, you know the deadline, and I'm using StudyNet because that's what you see. You know the deadline, and you obviously working around that. And I think it's really important that you kind of keep that in mind and keep that towards your own plan. First thing, of course, what we're asking you with this first assignment is that we ask you to prepare a report describing how organizations monetize social networking presence on different platforms. Now, you've got to do that by picking up 2 companies and to illustrate what is that they're actually getting in return from their social media investment. So the most important thing is to look at different processes and what is that they're getting in return. Remember, getting a return from social media could be all sorts of things. It could be subscriptions on your blog, subscriptions on your website. It could be more visitors into a YouTube video, more subscribers into the YouTube channel, more people attending a live event where companies introducing a product or service, or engaging more online, or also a sale. So in other words, there are all sorts of things you can look into when you decide to identify what is the company's getting in return. So the whole idea is identifying what companies, those 2 case studies, are getting in return from social networking investment. Now, of course, this is an important because what? This will then help you to identify which of these elements are actually helping companies to build what long-term relationship that we always talk about in the module. Now, of course, this will provide basis for the assignment 2, group presentation, so it's really important to get it right. Of course, the learning outcomes that you'll be assessed on this will be the social networking trends. So you need to know about the trends. You need to shortly talk about them, but not too much into details. Maybe a few challenges, if possible, of businesses. The impact of social networks such as Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Pinterest for improving overall business success. Impact of social network for business transactions, evaluation and presentation of efficient plans for business to embrace social networking to improve customer support and increase sales. Now, these are overall learning outcomes that you will be assessed on. Now, what you're being asked to do, which is probably the most important thing in here. Now, you require first and foremost to understand the nature of your case. So you need to pick up on the companies that are important to you. Obviously, the companies maybe that you care about, the companies that you're excited about, because otherwise this entire piece of work will be very boring to you. So the most important thing is to pick out those companies and understand the nature of those businesses before you look into social channels, because that will make a lot more sense. Then those selected case studies can be either around your workplace or your future career or the company you worked for. Please keep in mind that it is really important to, probably quite useful as well, to have companies of a similar industry. Now, if you are looking at for instance, BMW, it's probably quite a good idea to either look at Toyota or Mercedes or another company of a similar industry. So it will be really useful to do that, because I think if you did that, your analysis and your comparison would be a lot more stronger. They will be a lot more insightful, and they will make a lot more sense. So keep that in mind. The next thing is identify current social activities and their success. So this is when you start diving into the real work, where you start to identify activities and elements of social networking channels. That could be Twitter campaign, that could be social campaign in YouTube, that could be a YouTube campaign, that could be a Facebook fan page activities and things like that do help a company to do what? To promote their products and services, and then see what they're getting in return. Of course, then the part of it is also the setup and the structure of the business resources to support social growth, which means that you will need to somehow, when possible, to identify what are the resources that companies put behind social networking activities. So you need to identify, when I say resources, I mean people. How many people, who is in the company working towards supporting the social growth in your particular case studies. The next one is, of course, you need to present a time plan. Lots of you were not sure about what the actual time plan is. Time plan is simple, a timetable, and we'll talk about in the next lecture, but maybe I could just quickly cover it here as well. Now here we go. When I ask you about the timetable for presenting social media activities, I'm asking you to know what are some of those activities that your case studies are presenting on social networking channels. So what are the social channels that they're using, how often they're publishing, which day of the week, and how often. So in other words, this is just a short timetable that you could use to identify what are the activities they are doing, and if possible, who's responsible for it. But that's just a little bit of a guide for you. You don't have to use it. You can use anything that you want, but normally you need to have a bit of a weekly planning on social media activities, monthly, and sometimes yearly as well. But this is where you start to show what are those activities, when are you publishing, what time, and also which social channel, and how then this plays an overall role with everything else on your social media campaign that you're planning to run. Now let's go back to the study net where we asked you to look at the work now, and of course this should then lead you to create an overall summary for financial rewards that the business is gaining for investing in social space. So as you look at some of these things, some of the elements I mentioned earlier, you come up to a conclusion recommendation of, summaries, more to say, of how much they're getting in return, how this is playing as a financial rewards. Now, as I say, financial rewards doesn't have to mean money. It can be subscribers, it can be additional customers, it can be customers that are subscribing, or visitors that are turning into subscribers, and this way this could potentially be a long-term return for the company. Of course, the next thing is the reports format, what you're being asked to in terms of the workload. Of course, you have to write all of this within 2,000 words, 10% plus minus, so calculate that in your head and you will be able to find out more or less 200 words. And it's not very long, so that's why you have to be very specific. You have to be very organized, to the point to bring in all these ideas and these processes that are important. So do not get too much out of the structure and what you're planning to do, and that's why it's probably a good idea to create a bit of an outline for yourself before you get into it, and always remind yourself on what you're being asked to do, so then you don't go off the road. The report you should include, of course, section 1. You need to make sure that in the section 1 you include your ID, your name, module title, module code, and everything else. Please take on board all of these things, because you will get marks for them. So you'll lose marks if you don't pay attention to these. Content page, of course, this will get you 10 marks, and you need to make sure that you should include clear content pages, structure of the page. It needs to look professional, it needs to look good. Try to visualize as much as possible. Think about it. It's 10 marks there. Introduction, of course, provide a brief outline on your assignment, what you've decided to cover in this assignment. Remember, this needs to be written in third person, so you can't say I, you, he, she did that. So make sure that you write this in a third person. Section 2, main findings, of course, describing, goes back to what you're being asked to do, describing processes of organization that use to monetize social networking platforms. And that's exactly what I talked to you about earlier. You can organize your subheadings in here to match what you're presenting, whether that's a Twitter returns on investments or benefits, Facebook benefits, YouTube benefits, Pinterest benefits, Instagram benefits. So you can structure it this way. It's up to you. But a good structure with good relevant headings and subheadings will be very useful to you. You're expected to use credible and up-to-date sources. So as you describe and as you provide some of these information, you've got to make sure that you have up-to-date resources around social networking, and that include books, art chapters, third-party publications, articles, journals, and other relevant information that you might use. So you need to have a well-researched story that is backed up by evidence showing the benefits that companies, your case studies, are getting thanks to social networking investment. Section 3, of course, analysis and conclusions. This is when you're gonna dive into doing more analysis and actually bringing in and building up stronger arguments and raising questions. It's not good enough just to say BMW did and then Mercedes did that. That doesn't say anything. You need to make sure you build up a good flow of discussion and critical view where you say Mercedes seems to be quite lively using YouTube, and they've got several videos, and they have lots of customers who engage with the YouTube channel. However, on the other case, BMW is not doing that. That could be, you could also say that could be as a result of companies maybe having two different approaches to two different types of customers. And therefore, Solis 2011 suggesting that company need to be thinking about how about the target audience before they decide which social networking to use. So this way you're building up a more critical view. Section 4, a reference, and remember that gives you 40 marks, so it is really important. It's the most important part of this assignment. And of course, section 4 is references and bibliography. You've got to use complete Harvard referencing, and make sure you use at least 5 credible references. But we would expect a lot more, so please make sure you do that, especially those who are aiming for first. Section 5, appendices. They're not including the overall word count, but only short summaries or screenshots of the reports you have used can be included. So make sure that you have, if you're going to use appendices, just summaries. Don't use the entire case study from some source that you found and add that to appendices, because then the file would be 100 pages and we don't need that. There are relevant links here about Turnitin, about the assignment, and also frequently asked questions that you might want to see. Self-help guide to submitting your assignment for those of you with those exchange students, so you could do that. Now, the last bit, how to submit it. Submission requirements. Of course, you have got a very specific request to submit this assignment. It needs to be surname in uppercase plus first name in lowercase plus student ID plus assignment 1. Something like this. And it is really important you do that and you name it properly. Again, you will only be required to submit online, so electronic, soft copy, no hard copy. Don't come to the office to submit your hard copy. We don't need it. Everything is done via the website, so ignore anything else. Of course, failure to follow the above instruction will result in penalty of up to 5% of your work. So please get these right. They take a minute to do that, so really don't take that for granted. Make sure you do that. Standard business schools penalties will apply, so I don't know, 10% for each day late submission, and if it's more than 7 days later, of course, it will not be marked and you will fail the module. If you exceed the word count, you will be penalized, so make sure you do not exceed more than 2,200. If you do a bit more, 2,250 or something like that, we won't be penalizing you. But if you go over 2,250 or 2,300, then you will be penalized, and you don't want to do that. If you require an extension, please make sure you contact me directly. Of course, you have to have a very strong reason. You can't just ask for an extension because you were not good in planning your work. You can also come on the last day of the submission and ask for an extension because you just couldn't do it. So for any application for extensions, it's got to be only for urgent cases and also for serious adverse circumstances. So I hope this was useful. Please keep in mind that this is the video that probably is going to be very useful for you to download and have it in your machine as you do your assignment. But remember, what we're asking you to do is a report that introduces two case studies, analyzes them, and looks at the benefits that they are gaining from different social networking activities, how that is bringing revenues, potential subscribers or other things to the company, and also providing conclusions and recommendations mainly regarding social networking activities. And of course, all of this needs to be backed up by the research and the reading that you have done. Normally, it's a very good idea to have, when you do the research, to have two files side by side, Microsoft Word or Pages, whatever you're using. One side you have notes, all your notes for the assignment, for the research that you've done, including the reading, articles, and everything else. In another file, you could have the main drafted version for your assignment 1. So you start adding things into your assignment and start writing that up. So this way you build up clearly the first draft, and that would be really useful if you did that. Please do not leave this to the last day. Build up your drafts, ask questions, and then this way you'll be improving and improving, and by the end you will likely have a very good piece of work to submit. Don't forget, organizing your work, structuring it, headings and subheadings do help a lot. Please make sure you structure them the way suits your work and what you've tried to do. So I hope this was useful to you, and I'll see you this week and I'll see you the next week. But mainly during our tutorial next week in the week 5, we will be talking about we'll be taking some of the questions you might have for the assignment 1, but I hope that by now I have answered almost most of the questions you have already asked. Thank you very much.